NFL Week 2, my start of the week. We're going to dive right into the quarterback position, and I am rolling with Dak Prescott on Week 2 at home versus the New York Giants. Look, Dak had a rough first week. I get it. He got spit on. He scored less than 8 fantasy points. He was going up against a tough Philly defense, and he had 2 touchdowns vultured by Javonte Williams. The front seven for New York is good. So I think running the ball will be incredibly difficult. And honestly, I was really encouraged from what I saw from Dak Week 1 and from the Dallas offense in general. CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, Jake Ferguson will have much more room to eat. And I don't think any of the Cowboys running backs will be stealing multiple touchdowns again. A huge bounce back coming from America's quarterback at home in a dome against a bad Giants team. Make sure Dak is in your lineups and start him with confidence. My second pick at the quarterback position for my start of the week is going to be Drake May traveling to Miami. He gets to pick apart the team that just allowed Daniel Jones to drop nearly 30 fantasy points and finished as the quarterback 2 on the week. This is a super, super juicy matchup for the Patriots quarterback, who's going to be a nightmare all day long. He's a dual threat, and it's good to note that Daniel Jones just had 2 rushing touchdowns and killed Miami with his legs all day long. You can definitely expect Drake May to do the same, as he has top 5 upside with how bad of a showing the Dolphins had last week. May has already shown to have a really nice floor, and there's absolutely a possibility where this game becomes a barn burner and becomes a shootout with how good Miami's offense can be usually. Both of these defenses are already bottom of the league and could be a fantasy goldmine, which bodes super, super well for Drake May. If you roster May and you are deciding between him and another guy like Caleb Williams, Jordan Love, Jared Goff, I would really, really lean towards May. He is a fringe top 10 offense this week and a solidified top 12 option at the position in Week 2 for me. We are going right back to the Cowboy well for my first start at the wide receiver position this week. George Pickens drew a tough week one matchup against the defending Super Bowl champions and had one of the best corners in the league, Quinyon Mitchell, following him all night long, which is not fun for anybody. Now Pickens gets to play against one of the softer secondaries in the league and doesn't have an elite corner following him up and down the field all night. Dallas looked really good throwing the ball week 1, and it's something that stood out to me more than anything, and I don't think that the Cowboys are going to be able to run the ball effectively against the New York Giants front 7, which is really quietly good. Pickens is in for a super, super big day and can find his rhythm with Dak this week and possibly find the end zone multiple times. And based on what we saw last week, I think the passing game can only go up from here and the matchups are only going to get better. So Pickens is easily my favorite pick of the week at the wide receiver position. My second start of the week at the wide receiver position is none other than the guy that looks like he's going to be the number 1 option for the 49ers this season, and that is going to be Ricky Pearsall, who's going to be taking on the Saints. This pick stems from not only what I saw from Pearsall week 1, which saw him go for over 100 yards, but also the unfortunate news that we got yesterday, and that is George Kittle was headed to the IR. He's going to miss at least the next 4 games. Additionally, Juwan Jennings is also dealing with an injury of his own. He's banged up. Things really seem to be lining up for Pearsall against a really, really, really bad Saints team, and in the coming weeks, as George Kittle was going to be on IR. I will caution people, though, to keep an eye on Brock Purdy's injury designation this week. He got a little banged up in the game. There are whispers that he could miss week 2. And if that is the case, I am bumping Pearsall a little bit down. But regardless, look for Pearsall to have a massive week if Purdy plays, and especially if Jennings is hampered by injury and really won't be able to go. Since there is a chance that Purdy misses week 2, I want to give an honorable mention at the receiver position. And hear me out on this one. Don't kill me for this, but I am betting on Jalen Waddle against the Patriots in week 2. I understand that people are spooked by how awful the Dolphins looked in week 1. Trust me, it is definitely a concern, and it wasn't pretty at all. However, I think there were a lot of teams whose offense looked pretty bad, week 1 jitters, whatever. Miami struggles were really highlighted by how bad the vibes were this offseason, but week 2 is a different story, and it comes with a much softer matchup, especially if Christian Gonzalez isn't able to play like he was in week 1. Status for week 2 is very, very much in doubt. Even if he does play, though, I think Waddle has a big chance to feast. The Patriots just gave up 360 passing yards to Geno Smith. Jacoby Myers and Brock Bowers absolutely ate over the middle and where Waddle really operates. And if Christian Gonzalez does play, I think he will likely shadow and follow Tyreek Hill most of the game, and that is going to be his problem. That will allow Jalen Waddle to match up with the inferior DBs that the Patriots have. We all know that Waddle is electric when he gets the ball in his hands. We all know how good this Dolphins offense can be when it's clicking on all cylinders. And I think that he has a really big chance to bounce back in week 2 against a really, really soft defense versus the Patriots team that really, really struggled in week 1. So I am betting on Waddle week 2 versus the Patriots. During week 1, we saw a ton of things that made us scratch our heads. One thing that stayed pretty consistent, though, was that James Conner handled a majority of the snaps, per usual, and although Trey Benson looked good on his 8 carries, he only saw the field on 35% of the snaps. It was a 65-35 split between Conner and Benson, and until I see otherwise, I am going to continue starting Conner with confidence, and that includes this week where the Cardinals take on the Panthers, that just gave up 140 rushing yards to Travis Etienne and the Jaguars. I know it's just week 1, but Carolina was by far the worst team against the run in 2024, giving up almost 180 yards per game on the ground. And things really don't seem to have changed much just based on what we saw week 1. Look for the Cardinals to really lean on Conner in week 2 and establish the ground game against a really, really weak Panthers front. Conner will also see some nice dump offs and targets out of the backfield as Kyler surprisingly likes to target him despite how much he takes off and runs. I'd be over the moon and really happy about plugging Conner in as my RB2 or flex option in week 2. Now, I can't believe I'm saying this, but after a really impressive week 1 performance and the Jaguars trading away Tank Bigsby to the Eagles on Monday, I find myself really liking the idea of slotting Travis Etienne into my lineup as a solid RB2 or flex option. Etienne was incredibly impressive in week 1 and looked like his old self, racked up 140 yards rushing, along with almost housing a 71-yarder. Liam Cohen looks to be featuring Etienne in the meantime, and his week 2 matchup looks really, really good on paper against a Bengals team that is not good whatsoever, and we could see this game turn into a shootout pretty darn quick. Browns rookie Dylan Sampson was able to have a really, really nice fantasy day in his first NFL game, and that was with rushing for less than 30 yards. He caught 8 passes for 64 yards. Look for Etienne to have a similar day as he really, really excels in the receiving game and could have a lot more success on the ground in Cohen's scheme, just like he did in week 1. I'm not going to lie, it is incredibly hard to find tight ends that I even want to put in my lineup outside of the top 8 or 10 guys or so. It's a super shallow position, but I have some plays that I think are super sneaky this week. The first one correlates to my Drake May pick, and that is Hunter Henry. He is available in around 60% of ESPN leagues and about 40% of Yahoo leagues. I would be looking to grab him and slot him into my lineup. If you drafted Colson Loveland like I did, it would be wise to maybe pivot to him for a couple of weeks until Colson Loveland really starts to hit his stride. He's a pretty safe option and looks to be maybe the number 2 in this New England offense and can wrap up a lot of receptions, being the number 2 option and the safety valve for Drake May. He was able to have a really, really solid week 1. He had 8 targets, 4 catches, 64 yards, a really nice 10 PPR points. He gets a soft Miami defense in week 2 and can easily find himself in the end zone in a game that has a recipe to be a high-scoring game. Options are thin out there at tight end, but Henry is a fantastic start this week and could even be a regular in your lineups if he continues this target volume and is someone I love slotting in week 2 versus the Dolphins. My second start at tight end this week is someone who is rostered in most leagues. He is above the 70% mark on ESPN and both Yahoo. He's going to be Dalton Kincaid, who, like most tight ends, relies heavily on finding the end zone to really hit. But my biggest reason for starting him this week is for the first time in his career, we saw Sauce Gardner, the corner for the Jets, follow the number 1 wide receiver. And I think that Keon Coleman is going to have a tough day despite having a really, really impressive week 1. Josh Allen is going to have to heavily rely on the slot options in this offense, and that means good things for both Kincaid and Khalil Shakir, who primarily line up there and are going to be peppered with targets all day long. I don't imagine the Jets go for 30 points again like they did in week 1, but I was impressed with what they did against a tough Steelers defense. And the Bills are coming off a game where they gave up 40 points. Justin Fields is no Lamar Jackson, but he offers a similar headache to defenses as he's a super, super big rushing threat and could push the Bills to score a lot more points than they really want to and make this game a lot closer than the Bills probably imagined. I like Kincaid as a safe top 10 to 12 tight end this week with touchdown upside. I'm starting him if I don't have one of the solidified top 7 to 8 players at the position.